Okay, so back in the day when I was an elementary school teacher, like when the kids get that formal class picture and the teacher stands next to each class. Well, we did that, of course, every year. And of course, the teachers themselves had a separate picture of just the teacher. So I'll never forget this. It was one of those photo sessions. It happened every single year, the same photographer. And he always said the same thing every year. He doesn't realize he said the same thing every year. He would put our hands in a certain position, have us prop our head in a certain manner, and he would always, before he snapped the camera, he turned around. He said, "All right, now give us your favorite payday smile." I said, "Can't he come up with another line? Either that or I was teaching there too many years. I don't know." But it always made me chuckle. It always brought out the smile, and he got the picture. I guess at the end of the day, that's what counts. But every time I look at my past photos when I was a teacher, I always remember that right before the actual photo was taken, okay, give us your favorite payday smile. Why do we love payday so much? That it evokes a smile. There is an emotional attachment to payday. Let's think about this. You worked X number of hours or X number of weeks or once a week. Anybody gets paid once a week. You are very fortunate. So easy to budget weekly paychecks, but they're harder to get. Anyway, that's just my opine on that. So, making a long story short, why do we smile so much during payday? Well, because you feel like you got more flexibility and control, and the bill seems smaller and all that stuff. And maybe we'll get a couple of wants in on the deal. All right. I like to imagine our paychecks as if a pizza pie. Now, I made this reference a while ago. A while ago, I made a video about this, probably about at least 10 months back. When I get paid for anything, I like to imagine it as if a pizza pie. And as you know, unless you have a really great stomach and you know don't cut it into slices, you eat the whole thing like that, unless it's a tiny one. We generally cut up our pizza pie, right, into slices. So let's say that the standard pie is cut into 6 slices, or usually it's eight, if I'm not mistaken, 8 slices, right? All right. Those are the categories of what we could do with our paychecks. Now, we could just blow it all in one sitting on one purchase, right? I don't know if that's the greatest thing for most people. Did you know that at least 65 to 70% of folks live paycheck to paycheck? Just thought I'd mention that to you. There was a time it was much less than that, but now it's about that. So when you get paid, I believe the following. I believe you got to plan it out. Plan it out. Divvy it up like you would the pizza slices. You got to plan it out, and you got to be proactive and not reactive. But I feel that way in general in life about money anyway. So, paycheck period, that's absolutely a time to think that way. And really need to pay yourself first. That's one of the first things. So right off the bat, take a slice out of the pie out to pay yourself first. Could be in the form of a percentage, it could be a form of a specific dollar amount. You need to know what they are because you are just as important as your four walls. Then, of course, your essentials have got to get paid. Your four walls got to get paid. You know what they are, you know what the essentials are, okay? Your rent or your mortgage, your light bill, things of that nature, okay? Now, some folks live in what I call analysis paralysis. They're kind of like stuck as to what they do. And that's with their variable income, variable spending plan. And it's okay to ponder over that, but not too long. At some point, you do have to make a decision. But I get it because if you could cut back in some areas, you could put it in a better area. I get that, but you got to plan a budget. So pull out a slice of the pie, calling it budget. The budget is actually the master of the whole pie, but people don't realize that that slice is a very important slice of the financial pizza. Formulating a budget, you have to have a budget. Most people have to have a budget. Some people don't feel they don't need it. God bless you. God keep you. But I don't know. I feel, in my opinion, it's great to have a budget. All right. Here's the thing, another slice that people should take a slice out of. You get to tell your money what it should do. You do that, not somebody else. You get to do that. You get to tell your money what it should do and where it should go. Okay. And let's think about this. Doesn't it make sense to believe that our needs come first? I'm not saying don't have any wants. Please do not misunderstand that. Needs comes first. Okay. It's kind of like redundant. Okay. Like I mentioned about the four walls, but that is important. Now, within your needs, please, for the love of all things good, include some form of entertainment. Entertainment is important. There are some, you have to have some type of entertainment. We're humans, we work hard or smart or both, and you want a little entertainment. So provide that money, okay? You're going to have to set money aside for gifting if you want to be a generous person and be a gifter in some way, shape, manner. From now, there are plenty of ways to stretch being a gifter. That's not the issue, but include that in here. Now, here's a very important piece of the pie. Okay, this may apply to some people. This may not apply to some other people as well. They may not apply to them. Debt repayment. Some people are not in any debt. Some people recognize that their credit card is a short-term loan and they already include ahead of time because they knew in advance that they're going to repay that credit card transaction in full, and that's the debt repayment, and it is paid for quickly. But some people, unfortunately, for whatever the reason, I wouldn't know their specific reason because everybody's life is different. Everybody's situation is different. Some people have a continuation, like longer term debt repayment, and that's a big part of the pie. Okay. And then, of course, you go into the saving slash investing and look at when you get your pay as a pizza pie, divide it up into the categories I mentioned. There are other categories. This was seriously just a brief overview. And like I said earlier at the top of the show, okay, if it were me, I'm not going to put the whole paycheck on one thing, okay? Because then, okay, then what, right? Unless you have another situation where we get you through. But have a good mindful thought when you're taking out that piece of pizza pie, paycheck pizza. Then after all this talk about pizza, perhaps on payday you get yourself a reasonably priced pizza or make yourself a reasonably priced pizza. Here's the thing. Money should not tell us what to do. We tell it what to do. And if we can remember that, it'll be definitely smooth sailing. Live below your means. Say it again, cannot emphasize it enough. Live below your means. Find ways. I was just on a project earlier today as an aside, okay? I tend to use too many paper goods at dinner time, something I noticed, and even at lunchtime, right? And I said, this is contributing to more money being spent on paper goods. So don't get me wrong, paper goods are very convenient, they're very nice, and they can become a bit of a luxury. I said, what could I do to cut back? So I figured out a certain way that would help me to use less paper goods, okay? And that would be like to use like reusable absorbent rags and things of that nature. And some I could just toss away from leftover clothing that I was just either going to maybe donate or whatever. And sometimes people don't address the donation. If you have clothes sitting around for a long time that you intended to donate, cut them up as rags and substitute them for paper things, and then just throw it out. That's just one thing. Using less paper plates is another thing. This I'm just saying, if it's a product that you get one use out of, like whatever the product may be, find a substitute where you could use it over and over again. Believe it or not, that adds up to savings. it adds up to savings. A person can be saving a ton of money by finding alternative ways of doing things. It's just a matter of thinking and a matter of doing. This is what I mean by being proactive and not reactive. Being reactive would mean me buying more and more and more extra, extra, extra paper goods. I don't have to do that. I could find an alternative way. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe you should have some paper towels, some paper plates around. Absolutely. And keep some in your stockpile for, if we lose power. You see where I'm going with that. Not to the point of when you notice it's a little bit excessive and you're purchasing way too much than you need to. This is an example of being proactive. I don't have to get so many paper goods. I can find another way. I will find another way. That could save me a ton of money throughout the year. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate your time. Look around your home or apartment and ask yourself, is there money leaking from this extra pizza pie that you could actually put in your savings slice? Have an amazing, fantastic day. Take good care of yourself and your amazing family. Don't forget to click like, share, and subscribe. Super thanks are always welcome. Have a great day. Thank you.